1973 movie, The Long Goodbye. Elliott Gould plays Philip Marlowe Private Dick. It's based in 1970s Hollywood. We have Philip Marlowe, who lives with his cat. And the cat is pretty finicky, and the cat does not want to eat what food Philip Marlowe has around. So Philip Marlowe actually goes to the store to get some more premium cat food, where he cannot find the cat food. And he asks the clerk, he says, don't you have a cat? Because he cannot find it, and the clerk cannot help him. And the clerk says, why do I need a cat? I got a girlfriend. And that pretty much sets the theme of the movie. Philip Marlowe is just a private investigator, a lost soul in L.A. He comes upon his friend Terry, who wants him to drive him to Tijuana, Mexico. And that's where the movie begins. Philip Marlowe does his friend a favor and drives him to Tijuana, Mexico. So he drives his friend to Mexico, he gets back, and two detectives want to talk to him. Marlowe has no idea that his friend is involved in something. What has happened is his friend's wife has been murdered, and Terry's on the run. Whether he did it or not, we don't know yet. Marlowe drops him off in Mexico, and the police want answers. They rough him up a little. They don't really rough him up, but they give him trumped up charges. They throw him in jail because he's a smart ass and he's not talking. And he's in jail for 3 days. David Carradine is even a little cameo there, uncredited, I believe. He's his cellmate in jail. Marlowe's in jail for 3 days, and they finally let him out. And he says, what's happening? Why am I here? Why am I being let go? And they said, we don't need you anymore, Marlowe. Your friend Terry's dead. And then the case begins. He takes another case to find big Roger Wade. His wife says he's missing for 5 days. So Marlowe goes on the search for Roger Wade. He goes to the hospital because Roger has an alcohol problem and he thinks he might be driving out at the hospital, where he's looking for Dr. V because his wife said, has a piece of paper, Dr. V, Dr. V, Dr. V, and so he's looking for Dr. V. They say, Dr. V's not here, but he's standing right in front of Marlowe. And then you know there's something up with Dr. V. Marlowe hides in the bushes and goes back to the hospital at night, where he finds Mr. V trying to shake down Roger Wade. He tells him to sign a check for $4,500. You owe me $4,500, Wade, now pay me. And of course Roger says, I'll rip you from limb to limb. I'll tear you to pieces. Let me out of here. But somehow the doctor has some sort of mental control over Roger, who's the alcoholic. But there's Philip Marlowe spying on them, looking in the window, and he says, you don't have to sign that check, Roger. And anyhow, Philip Marlowe to the rescue, and he takes him out of the hospital. Obviously, Dr. V is really upset, and he says, you will hear from me, Roger. Well, Philip Marlowe takes Roger back home. He's drunk, and this is where he finds out that Roger's wife knows Terry. Remember Terry, who supposedly killed his wife? And he knows, they know each other. So somehow this case is connected. And then Philip Marlowe goes home, where the mobster comes in. Obviously, you have to have a mobster in a movie like this. His name is Mr. Augustine. And he roughs up Marlowe a little bit, takes him up to his apartment with his goons, and he tells his mole in the car, hey, you stay here, girl. And you can even play the radio if you want. And that's what she does. He goes upstairs to give Marlowe the riot act, and his girlfriend plays the radio down in the car. But the mistress makes a huge mistake. She gets tired of listening to the radio in the car, and she wanders up to Marlowe's apartment where they're shaking Marlowe down. They want to know what happens here is Augustine is missing a suitcase full of money, and he thinks that Marlowe's buddy took it down to Mexico. It was supposed to go to Mexico, but it did not arrive. So Augustine, to scare Marlowe, explains to Marlowe that this girl here, his girlfriend, he really loves her. And yet he smacks her over the face with a Coke bottle and maims her. And he tells Marlowe, that's a girl that I like, and I don't even like you. So Marlowe's getting the drift. Augustine is not playing around, and he wants his money. So there's a little bit of panic going on because the girl is bleeding and screaming. This gives Marlowe a chance to get out of the apartment, get to his car where he plans on following Augustine. He follows Augustine to Mrs. Wade's house. Roger Wade, he's the writer, the over-the-hill writer who thinks he's Hemingway and he has an alcohol problem and, the life is falling apart. What does this mobster Augustine have to do with the Wades? And this is what brings Marlowe into the case deep, because now he's thinking that his friend did not murder his wife. He always thought it, but now he's really starting to get evidence that this is something really dirty. You got Augustine, you got the stolen money. And then he tells Harry, Augustine gives one of his henchmen, Harry, the job of following Marlowe. Marlowe tells Harry, he says, I'm proud to have you following me, Harry. When they get to the Wade's house, he says, but listen, you got to stay behind. I'm not supposed to see you following me. Basically, Marlowe is toying with Harry, who's nothing but a gorilla monkey working for Augustine. So Marlowe goes to the Wade's house. You got to realize he's a famous writer, this expensive house right on the beach. And this is where he gets into a conversation with Roger Wade, who has already been drinking, already started drinking in the morning. He's already pissed off his wife. And Roger Wade and him have a really nice conversation on the beach, right there at the beach house, of course. And they're drinking. Marlowe says, I'll have whatever you're having, which he's just trying to be friends with Roger, get on his good side, because he's basically digging from information. He finds out that, yes, Roger knows Augustine, but Roger says that Augustine owes him money. Well, we don't know if he's lying because, most people owe Augustine money. And Marlowe heads to Mexico. He does a little digging into his friend's death down in Mexico. They claim it's a suicide. His friend Terry committed suicide, but there's no money to be found. So who has the money? Do the Mexicans have the money? We don't know yet. Marlowe ends back at the Wade's house where they're having a party, and that's where Dr. V shows up. And Dr. V demands that he gets paid his $4,500. He even slaps Wade. Yes, Dr. V slaps Wade in the face and embarrasses him there in front of all his friends at the party. It was embarrassing. The little midget smacking the big Hemingway writer. It was embarrassing. He meekly walked into his office, put his tail between his legs, and he wrote Dr. V a check for $4,500. Falls asleep drunk. Marlowe has a nice dinner with the wife, and you think this is going somewhere, and then all of a sudden Marlowe blows it, and he starts asking, why was Augustine over here to talk to you? He starts digging. Was your husband having an affair with Terry's wife? And before you know it, Mrs. Wade is not very happy. But as they're discussing this in the house, Roger Wade decides to commit suicide, and he walks out into the Pacific Ocean. Marlowe tries to go out and save him. The wife is frantic. They try to save him, but it's too dark and it's too late. And Roger Wade committed suicide by drowning in the ocean. And this is where Marlowe figures out it was Roger Wade who killed Terry's wife. And he felt guilty about it and he committed suicide. He confirmed that by pressuring Mrs. Wade. She admitted it. Her husband was having an affair with Terry's wife, and Terry found out about it. The wife wanted to break it off with Roger. Roger got mad, and apparently Roger killed the wife. Terry then gets scared. He's going to head to Mexico, but he has to deliver the $300,000 of Augustine's money, and we still have not figured out what has happened to Terry down in Mexico. But then this is when Marlowe goes to Augustine's office. Why, we don't know, but there, Augustine brings out his girlfriend, says he's taking care of her, he got naked, he apologized, all's well. And this is where Arnold Schwarzenegger makes an uncredited appearance. This is one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's first early appearances in film. And you know why he's there, because everybody's going to get undressed. Yeah, the crazy Augustine says, everybody get undressed, and by everybody getting undressed, he thinks that Marlowe is going to tell him the truth. Where is the money? And they're going to actually cut up Marlowe with a knife, and all of a sudden the money appears. We don't know how it shows up, but at this point the money has showed up. Augustine is happy, and he even tells Marlowe to keep a $5,000 bill for his trouble. In the next scene, Marlowe sees Mrs. Wade driving her Mercedes down the road. And he tries to catch up with her. He's running down the street. She's driving kind of slow. We don't know for sure whether she sees him or not, but she's smiling and she just keeps on driving and she doesn't stop. And finally, Marlowe is hit by a car. Yeah, stupid ass Marlowe chasing this beautiful blonde in her Mercedes, and he ends up getting hit by a car, taken to the hospital, where he wakes up in the hospital and he gets out and he's starting to put everything together. So he takes a trip to Mexico. I'm not going to spoil the movie for you, but the whole finale ends up in Mexico, and he finds out how the money got returned. He finds out what really happened, and it is quite a finale. So I enjoyed this movie, and I know if I enjoyed the movie, you're going to enjoy the movie. We've got to give this one at least 8 bravos, huh? Yeah, we'll give it an 8 bravos out of 10.